Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban bikum, and welcome to another edition of the series In Pursuit of Purpose. In the last episode, we commenced a discussion on the benefits of failure. That's after having completed our discussion on forgiveness frees the soul, positivity is superpower, and happiness is a choice. We're now on our fourth topic in this particular series. Let's do a recap of what we discussed in the last episode. We explained that it's impossible to live without failing at something. And live unless you live your life so cautiously that you don't achieve anything, and hence you don't fail, and by default you're considered a failure. Because to fail is a human, it's part of human nature. But if you can understand the concept of failure, and more importantly how to respond to failure, then you can fail your way to amazing things. And what is holding us back is an unrealistic, irrational fear of failure. There's actually a medical term for it, and we discussed it, atikiphobia. It's the ego, that's the closet pessimist, right? It fears embarrassment. So it exaggerates the possibility of things going wrong. It exaggerates the negatives, and then it wants to hold back because it doesn't want to be embarrassed. And as a result, you do not fulfill your talents. You do not fulfill the extent of the scope which Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has given you. And this is a major societal challenge because it has become a societal norm. Then we explained that there's a beautiful quote: don't fear failure. Fear being in the same place 1 year later, in the same position 1 year later. If you're all the time going to fear failing, you're not going to make any progress. You're just going to stagnate. You're going to be where you were 1 year later. We unpacked some interesting definitions of what is failure. Someone said it's simply being unsuccessful, meaning you haven't truly failed until you give up. As long as you're living by your values, even if things don't work out, then it's not a failure. We spoke about that lady who was divorced and refused to refer to her first marriage as a failed marriage. She said, Allah wanted me to go through this marriage to learn certain things and to emerge stronger and more experienced and wiser. The question you need to ask yourself is that if I did not fear failure, if I was given certainty that you wouldn't fail, what would I do differently in my life? And if there are many things that I would have done differently, it means that the fear of failure is unnecessarily holding you back. It's a self-created one. That's why they say that everything you want is on the other side of fear. Everything you want is on the other side of fear. Now, there's an irrational fear of failure, and then there's a rational fear of failure. Go jump off a ship in the middle of the ocean and you don't know how to swim and there's sharks all around. That is not unhealthy. That's a healthy fear of failure. Because history will tell you, experience will tell you, that if you don't know how to swim in such deep waters and if there's sharks all around you, your chances are slim. So that fear is a healthy one. We're not saying humans must be reckless or mustn't have some degree of fear. It mustn't be that the fear cripples you unnecessarily. Yes, irrational fear is where there's a reasonable prospect of success. But instead of doing due diligence and taking a calculated risk, you exaggerate the possibilities of it not working out. I gave the example of a person who's learning to ride a bicycle or to learning to drive a car. Now, there's some element of risk. You could fall from that bicycle, you could hurt your leg, but if you say, I may end up being crippled for the rest of my life, I'd rather not learn to ride a bike. By one in 2 billion people possibly become crippled because they fell off a bike, right? So you could have some injury, but don't exaggerate it. It's a calculated risk. When you're learning to drive, you can meet up in an accident. You can become a paraplegic. But you've got to look at the stats and say, listen, these are the possible risks. These are the advantages. It's a calculated risk. You don't let that unnatural, irrational fear of failure hold you back. Then we spoke about some of the benefits of failure. It's the greatest teacher, because if you play it safe all the time, you won't fail, but you won't learn. You'll just repeat the same safe choices all the time. It helps you to reach your potential. If you don't embrace possible failure, then you won't have the key to taking on a variety of challenges and reaching new heights. You will have to embrace failure as a necessary step to unprecedented success. Failure is what teaches you creativity. Otherwise, you'll end up doing the same thing over and over again. When you fail, like Thomas Edison failed, over 1,000 times, they say, in trying to create the first light bulb. But It made him more innovative, creative, until eventually he got it right, and until today humanity is benefiting. So failure helps you to rewire your brain and gets the creative juices flowing. It's a redirection. The height of stupidity is to do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So when you fail, it makes you come back with stronger reasoning, with a better strategy, with a change of tactics. It helps to keep you hungry and humble. If you have too much of initial continuous success, you become arrogant and complacent. Then when you taste failure, you can't come back. We gave you examples in the sporting world as well. The first season, century after century. Then they work out a few, chinks in your armor, in your technique, and all of a sudden now it's failure after failure after failure, from one extreme to the other extreme, because you became arrogant, you became complacent. When you score 100 and then afterwards you score 50 and then afterwards you score a duck, it creates some balance and perspective. It makes you realize what the true value of success is, because you have tasted failure. It strips you of your notion that you are invincible. Otherwise you become reckless. That's why you see people who are very early in life made a lot of money. They lose that money also just so quickly because they become reckless. They've never tasted failure. So failure will make you grateful, it will make you humble, it will make you empathetic to other people who, when they are going through their moments of failure. It makes you a great teacher and mentor, because you will learn more in a single failure than a lifetime of success. It creates mental toughness and resilience, and that's why they say feast on your failure, meaning learn the most that you can out of that which went wrong. So that is what we discussed in the last episode. Now let's look at some examples of people who failed initially. Right? Steve Jobs. This is iPhone, Apple. He is the founder, was the founder of Apple. He's now dead, he's late. There came a time when his vision was clashing with the vision of the rest of the board, and they fired him. They fired him from Apple. Later on, they brought him back. And when they brought him back, that's when Apple achieved the success that it's become renowned for. Until then, you and I had no Apple device in our hands. Now you've got the iPhone, and you've got the iPad, and you've got the MacBook, and you've got lots of things, right? That are coming from the same company. He himself, Steve Jobs, said, had I not been fired the first time, I wouldn't have achieved the success that I achieved when I came back. So he failed initially, but that became the stepping stone to the success later on. Einstein, who doesn't know about Einstein, right? You're learning about Einstein from the time you're in school. Einstein, they say, did not learn to speak until the age of 4, whereas the average child would learn to speak much earlier than that. He did not learn to write until the age of 7. Einstein did not learn to write until the age of 7. His teacher, Einstein's teacher, described him as mentally slow. Yet, in the scientific field, he went on to achieve what we know he achieved. Henry Ford. You see Ford motor cars all over, right? All over the world. He went broke, they say, 5 times. He went broke 5 times before he succeeded. 5 times he failed. Went broke, then eventually he succeeded. So these are just worldly examples, right? That's not the ultimate standard for us, but even by worldly standards, many have failed before they tasted great success. I share with you another quote. They say, don't say I failed 99 times. Don't say I failed 99 times. Say I discovered 99 ways that cause failure. Don't say I failed 99 times. Say I discovered 99 things that cause failure. Each time now I've discovered what caused my failure. So I gave you some logical reasons as to why there are benefits to failure and some worldly examples. Let's look at it now more from an Islamic perspective. What is the perspective of Quran and Sunnah when it comes to failure? First and foremost, when we discuss the perspective of Quran and Sunnah when it comes to failure, we've got to discuss the concept of taqdeer. Something that we are taught verbally and literally when we are small. وَالْقَدْرِ خَيْرِهِ وَشَرِّهِ مِنَ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى. وَالْقَدْرِ خَيْرِهِ وَشَرِّهِ مِنَ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى. Later on, perhaps, we were able to understand it in a bit more depth. But in simple terms, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala tells us that to some extent you have a choice, and after that it's out of your control. Hence, the hadith tells us, "Al-mu'minu al-qawi khayrun wa ahabbu ila Allah min al-mu'min al-da'if," and then "Wahris ala ma yanfa'uk wasta'in billahi wa la ta'jas." That be desirous to achieve good by relying on Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala and never become helpless. But in the end, if something good happens, know that it wouldn't happen otherwise, even if all of humanity wanted it not to happen. If something bad happens, it wouldn't have happened otherwise, even if all of humanity didn't want it to happen. So don't be helpless. Right? Don't be helpless. وَلَا تَعْجَزْ. The fear, the irrational, unrealistic fear of failure is what will make you helpless. Strive to achieve the maximum, but by relying on Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Even if you fail, you try again by bolstering your reliance on Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Taqdeer is not meant to make you passive, that okay, I'll sit back and wait for things to happen. No. It's meant to make you realize that I can try my best, but if Allah doesn't want it to work, it won't work. And if it doesn't work, there's possibly some wisdom behind it. So it strips you of despondency and arrogance. If it doesn't work, okay, I tried my best. I'll see how I can do better, but ultimately the results are in Allah's hands. And if it works, hey, I made a bit of an effort, but the results came from Allah. So that's the purpose of taqdeer, to create that balance. If it doesn't work, qaddar Allah wa ma sha'a fa'al. Allah has decreed it. I'm not going to make too much ifs and buts. I'll try and learn from it and move on. And if it happens, I attribute it to Allah. Ma asabaka min hasanatin fa min Allah. I don't open up the doors of ifs and buts. Law anni fa'altu kana kada wa kada. At the same time, I don't become too arrogant. I find some sort of balance. If it works out, attribute it to Allah. If it doesn't work out, Allah knows best. I'll learn from it and I'll try and come back stronger. With this kind of mindset and thinking, you can overcome any obstacle and you can overcome any failure. Time for a break. When we come back, we continue, inshallah. Welcome back. So we're talking about the benefits of failure as part of our series In Pursuit of Purpose. If you don't know how to respond to failure and if you don't understand failure, you're not going to be able to achieve your purpose. We explained how Steve Jobs was fired from Apple, and as a result of being fired, he came back stronger and he was able to achieve the success that he achieved. How Einstein and Henry Ford failed initially in life and afterwards they were able to achieve. And most importantly, prior to the break, I was explaining the concept of taqdeer. That it's not meant to make you despondent and passive, right? That, okay, I'll just sit back and wait for Allah to decide what will happen. But at the same time, it's not meant to make you arrogant, that, it's me. Because when you put everything on you, right, when you succeed, then you're flying high. When you fail, you're totally despondent. It's going to create two extremes. Taqdeer balances it out. If you succeed, alhamdulillah, I made some effort, but Allah blessed me with the ability to make the effort, and the results came from Allah. Allah decreed it. If it doesn't work, hey, look, I made some effort. I may have made some mistakes and learned from it, but ultimately Allah in His wisdom decided why it shouldn't work and why it should be like this. قَدَّرَ اللَّهُ وَمَا شَاءَ فَعَلْ. Allah has decreed, and whatever Allah decrees, it's as per His will. وَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُ شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. Sometimes you may dislike something, but it's better for you. So the hadith tells us you don't open up the door of if this or if I did that, let it be. And if you have this kind of a mindset of balance, because of the belief in taqdeer, you can overcome any obstacle and you can bounce back from any failure. That's the perspective from Quran and Sunnah. Another perspective from Quran and Sunnah is tawakkul. وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَل لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. If you rely on Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, Allah is sufficient for you. So if you failed, no problem. Maybe Allah wants me to learn from here. I'll rely on Allah. I'll do my due diligence better this time. I'll make an effort, a greater effort, a more strategic effort. I'll learn from my mistakes, but ultimately I rely on Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. There are spiritual benefits to failure as well. See, in worldly terms it could be a failure, but in spiritual terms it actually could be a mercy. Allah talks about it in Surah Alif Lam Mim As-Sajda. وَلَنُذِيقَنَّهُم مِّنَ الْعَذَابِ الْأَدْنَى دُونَ الْعَذَابِ الْأَكْبَرِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. That we make them taste the lesser punishment in order to protect them from the greater punishment. If they were to heed the lesser punishment and come back to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. At times maybe you're losing your plot. You're losing your connection with Allah. You're succeeding materially, but you're failing spiritually. And then Allah makes you hit a pothole on the road of life. knocks out all 4 of your rims. One massive deal goes wrong. All of a sudden, there's cash flow problems. All of a sudden, creditors are knocking. All of a sudden, banks are pressurizing. All of a sudden, now you can't sustain your lifestyle. But if you learn from it, you know what? I've been neglecting Allah. My salah is not in order. I haven't been reading Quran and making dhikr, and you come closer to Allah and you remedy your actions, then in reality it is a mercy. The world may call it a failure. Maybe your business crashed. Maybe your marriage failed. Maybe you failed the year at school or at university. But years down the line, when you look back at it, you'll say, that was the wake-up call I needed. So from a spiritual perspective, it's a spiritual wake-up call failure. Look at the story of Adam alayhi salam and Iblis, right? They both failed. Adam alayhi salam failed in complying to the instruction of Allah. By mistake, but he failed. Iblis, by design, intentionally, he failed to uphold the command of Allah, to prostrate to Adam alayhi salatu wasalam. But what elevated Adam alayhi salam back to Jannah, and what relegated Iblis to the depths of hell for eternity, is not the failure, but how they responded to the failure. Adam alayhi salam responded by saying, Rabbana dhalamna anfusana. Allah, we have greatly oppressed ourselves. Even though it was a mistake. Oh Allah, we greatly oppressed ourselves. وَإِن لَمْ تَغْفِرْ لَنَا وَتَرْحَمْنَا. If you don't forgive us, and if you don't show mercy on us, who will forgive us, and who will show mercy on us? Iblis, he blamed Allah for بِمَا أَغْوَيْتَنِي. He tried to justify, أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِّن. Later on, when he told Musa alayhi salam that, ask Allah to forgive me, Allah said, go prostrate by the grave of Adam alayhi salam. He said, if I didn't prostrate to him when he was alive, why will I prostrate to him now that he's not alive? So it was the response to the failure that differentiated Adam alayhi salatu wasalam from Iblis. Failure is a test. Allah says, أَحَسِبَ النَّاسُ أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ. Do people think they will just be left to have a life which is smooth sailing and they won't be tested just because they are Muslims and they bring Iman? No. But when you are tested, Allah tells you, وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْسَنُوا. Do not grieve overly or excessively. Do not become weak because of what happened in the past and where you failed. وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ. You'll succeed eventually in kuntum mu'minin if you become a true Muslim. وَتِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. There's this unch niche, as they say in Urdu, up, down. You win some, you lose some. That's what they say in English. Some days you'll win, it work out. Some days you'll lose, it won't work out. So in Uhud, there was initial victory and then there was a setback. In Badr, there was a victory against all odds. That's how it is, right? That's how life is designed to be. No one can live a life that is absolutely smooth sailing, that has no hiccups, no bumps in the road, no potholes, no detours, no unscheduled pit stops, no engine rumblings, no electronic issues. Yeah, you can have the best of cars, right? Sometimes you drive a car just out of the showroom and you have issues, and that man comes past you with his jalopy and you think, oh wow, I've paid $1 million for this car. Look at him with this car that's not worth 10 grand, and off he goes, and here I am. Because of some issue with the electronics, the car doesn't want to even start. Such is life. Life is such, as they say, right? So you can't truly live without failing. If we are to summarize what I've discussed, and to conclude with that summary, right? The ego doesn't want to be embarrassed. It fears failing the first time, but rarely do people get it right the first time. We've got to understand what is failure. Most of the time it's self-created, it's perceived, it's not real, it's not rational, and we've got to create that balance. What is failure? It's merely success postponed. It's success postponed. You only truly fail when you give up. What are the benefits of failure? It teaches you, it humbles you, it develops within you resilience, it generates creativity, it helps you to reach your potential, it makes you a good teacher and mentor because you've learned, you feasted on your failure. We've given examples of people who failed. Steve Jobs got fired and then rehired, and he achieved the success that he achieved by his own admission because of being fired the first time. People who failed at school, I know people, you would know people. They were loafing, then they failed, and then they got a wake-up call, and all of a sudden they become academically great achievers. Had it not been for that failure, perhaps they wouldn't have achieved. Einstein's example we gave, Henry Ford's example we gave. Then the perspective from Quran and Sunnah, it's a test. Allah will test you in some way, so failure is a test. And it's not about the failure itself, it's about how you respond to the failure. That's what distinguished Adam ﷺ from Iblis. It's about Allah sometimes wanting to bring you closer, back to Him, wanting to give you a wake-up call. And if you heed that wake-up call, then it may look on the apparent as a failure. People may classify it as a failure, but in reality, it's actually a mercy from Allah Ta'ala. We spoke about how taqdeer creates that balance. It strips you of your arrogance and overconfidence, at the same time doesn't allow you to become too despondent. So the purpose of this particular topic is not that you throw caution to the wind and you become reckless and you become gung-ho. No. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. This is an ummah of balance and moderation. Don't allow the fear of failure to hold you back from pursuing that which has a reasonable chance of success. That is what we are trying to say. When there's a reasonable chance of success, it's not guaranteed success. So sometimes you will fail, but you will grow from it. It'll help you, inshallah, to reach newer heights. You've got to try. You've got to show some courage. You've got to show some guts. Failure should be a stepping stone to greater success. Failure is not final. It's just another shot at trying to achieve the same thing and perhaps coming at it differently. It's not fatal. No matter how hard you may have fallen or how big the failure may have been, no failure is permanent. Real failure is not to get the most out of it. The greatest failure is not being the best version of yourself. We'll all fail from time to time, but the truly successful people are the ones that aren't afraid to fail, to get back up, and to then move further and faster and to greater heights. They say success is going from one failure to the next with no loss of enthusiasm. Success is going from one failure to the next with no loss of enthusiasm. So failure should be our teacher, not our undertaker. Failure is a temporary detour, not a dead end. Failure is something we can avoid only by saying nothing, doing nothing, and being nothing. I'll close with this Arabic saying. They say, رُبَّ عِلَّةٍ أي مرض كانت سبب الصحة. Sometimes illness is the cause of cure. Sometimes illness is the cause of cure. How? You're living an unhealthy life. You're eating fast foods, you're eating junk foods, you're eating all the sugary stuff. You have a heart attack. But that heart attack is a wake-up call. After that, you lose weight, you get into shape, you walk, you gym, you exercise, you're doing everything. Now your health is greater than it was before the heart attack. And now that has long-term advantages right into your old age. So had it not been for that heart attack, you wouldn't have achieved this greater state of health. Hence, they say illness is the cause of cure. And failure can be the cause of greater success. May Allah Ta'ala grant us the understanding. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.